listening to the ATM Marketplace Podcast.
Hello and welcome to this ATM Marketplace Podcast, Windows 10 for ATMs. The time to migrate is now. I'm Suzanne Cluckey, your host for the podcast. It's hard to believe that the previous Microsoft operating system upgrade for ATMs, from Windows XP to Windows 7, has been past history now for almost 6 years. But now Microsoft's support for Windows 7 will come to an end on January 14, 2020. This means that FIs who demand the most rigorous security for their ATMs must undertake another migration with all its accompanying costs and logistics. My guest for today's podcast is Brendan Watkins, ATM Managed Services Product Manager at Fiserv. Brendan is here to explain the ins and outs of the Windows 10 upgrade and to tell us how FIs can streamline their conversion to the new operating system.
Fiserv moves money and information in a way that moves the world and is a trusted leader in payment and financial technology. For 35 years, Fiserv has helped financial institutions of all sizes achieve best-in-class results with market-leading card management, fraud solutions, proven digital card enablement capabilities, consultative services, and vast experience in integrating with core and digital systems. Learn more at fiserv.com.
Welcome, Brendan.
Hello, Suzanne. How are you?
Good. Glad to have you with us today. To start out this podcast, I wanted to get you to update our audience on the urgency for financial institutions to migrate their ATMs to the Windows 10 operating system.
Oh, yes, for sure, Suzanne. So by now, most financial institutions have began the planning process to migrate their ATMs to the new Windows 10 operating system. Windows 10 is the successor to the current Windows 7 version used by a majority of the world's banks, ATMs. Most banks upgraded from the reliable but severely aged Windows XP to the Windows 7 operating system fairly recently, mostly within the past 3 years. But unfortunately, Microsoft has announced that it will end support for Windows 7 on January 14th of 2020, which is right around the corner. So it is very necessary for financial institutions, if they haven't done so already, to start their planning process to upgrade to the Windows 10 operating system.
Okay. So why is Microsoft calling for this OS upgrade at this time?
That's a great question, right? Especially since it's right on the heels, especially for the ATM industry,
Right.
the upgrade from Windows 7 to Windows 10. But like the Internet of Things, technology is constantly changing, and Microsoft being a large provider of technology and services for a lot of different companies, ATMs are feeling this in different ways. The ATMs, as you guys understand, they operate because there's a hardware and a software component. One of the things that most of the things in Internet of Things don't have to worry about is managing both at the same time to provide a service. ATMs have that problem. So part of the struggle is to make sure that the hardware components within the ATM are operating in the most efficient and nimble manner. In order to do that, Windows is providing a system upgrade with Windows 10 to provide a more secure and a more innovative customer experience to allow for new innovative experiences at ATMs going forward.
I get it. Okay. So it's really about the customer experience as much as anything, at least externally.
Yeah, it's really enabling it, right? Because when you think about it, an operating system upgrade is supposed to have faster times to process. It's supposed to be able to help you use newer technologies that aren't available before. And that is part of the process and big win. So indirectly, that's going to result in client experience changes. So you would see, instead of standing and waiting at the ATM, just click through page by page for some of the older terminals. The process for upgrading to Windows 10 requires you to get a new PC core if it's necessary, more memory installed, and then also get the latest and greatest software installed on the ATMs as well. So if you think about it, if you're looking at something from a software delivered 2 or 3 years ago, by today's standard, it is old news. So this is forcing clients to upgrade their ATMs, which impacts their ability to provide an elevated client experience going forward.
Okay. Well, that said, what would you consider the single most compelling reason for an FI to migrate their ATMs to Windows 10 now?
So as attacks against the ATM software increase year over year, many financial institutions and deployers identify security as their number one concern. With the last 2 years, there have been specific malware attacks, and they've been on the rise. And they're really specific to the ATM industry. So with the genuine security risk that results in unsupported operating system platforms, you're actually exposing yourself if you're not on the latest and greatest technology. So Windows 10 provides data separation and containment features that are specifically designed to stop malware attacks.
Okay, so it sounds as if Windows 10 really does help then to respond to this trending approach in ATM logical attacks.
Correct. I think it's one aspect of it. And if you're depending on who you talk to, so as your true end user, true client, for FIs is definitely the security aspect is worth the money, based on the fact of ATMs are now worth more to criminals for the card data that's on them than the actual cash that they hold.
Wow.
So when you think about it from that angle, Windows 10 is protecting the data on the ATM more so than the physical features that are already existing on the ATM, like a safe and alarms, et cetera, to protecting the cash that's inside.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. I know that there are several other important factors that FIs need to be aware of when it comes to migrating to Windows 10. So what would those be?
Correct. I think one of the most important things to understand is the delay. So first, every financial institution must be aware that delaying the upgrade to Windows 10 can eventually result in their loss of their PCI, data security standard compliance.
Mm-hmm.
So by moving to Windows 10, you enable yourself to keep that compliance. And then also that translates into a better security, which equals a better bottom line. So
Right.
upgrading to Windows 10 will not only help you in the battle against ATM malware, it'll help your bank maintain a high level of uptime and availability for your ATM fleet, and better uptimes means better client engagement and stronger profitability.
I know that there are so many advancements in banking in general and in payments technology these days. You know, the ATM has just been this faithful servant to the banking industry for so long, and sometimes it gets overlooked.
It sure does, right? The fun thing about an ATM is that no one cares about the ATM until it doesn't work. And I think that's one of the things that Fiserv and our team specifically is looking at is how can you reinvigorate that excitement about an ATM? Because at the end of the day, if it gives you your cash or accepts your deposit, you're a happy customer, right? But really, when you think about what this overhaul and this advancement of the ATM software stack means, new operating system, newer ATM software, it's going to be able to provide a quality ATM experience that's going to drive customer loyalty. So when you think about some of the things that are important to an FI, especially establishing a multi-channel strategy, ATMs, if they're built right and taken care of in the long run, they'll be able to deliver strong, reliable ROI, and they can still offload certain teller and contact center tasks and provide cross-selling value-added features that you can utilize across your branch or your market today. So while we think about ATM as a technology of tomorrow, it actually enables you to help digitize the rest of your client experience and provide you the advantage over your other customers.
Okay. So in short, migrating to Windows 10 then helps protect an FI's technology investment.
For sure, yes. So the other part of the equation is that ATMs are a significant capital investment, and they have an expected life of about 5 to 7 years. So when you think about it, if you plug it in the wall, it's up and running, and if you don't maintain it, you're going to lose the value that you establish in that large capital investment. So they require a little TLC, little tender love and care.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that tender love and care is making sure the software is up to date, your hardware is operating in tip-top fashion, and part of that hardware and software update is an operating system update with Windows 10.
Okay. Well, that doesn't seem to be so much to ask.
It doesn't, right? But that's where it gets a little complex, right? Because this is where the question of how do you make that happen, right? And that's what we'll kind of chat through a little bit later. But that's where people are kind of getting hung up is where do you start, right?
Yeah, and what do you get out of it? So, which goes to the next question that I had, which was, what are the other benefits that financial institutions will get from upgrading ATMs to Windows 10?
Sure. So some of the things that a good analogy that we have is one component that's going to be changing is you're moving from a 32-bit processor to a 64-bit processor.
Uh-huh.
And with that change, imagine yourself going from a horse-drawn buggy to an automobile. So it's going to allow you to get to places faster. It's going to be a more efficient way to travel, and it's not going to have a lot of the hangups that you would normally have on a 32-bit system.
Hmm.
As I said before, PCI compliance is a big element of it. So protecting client data is a key component to making sure you as a FI are protected and your clients are protected as well. And Windows 10 offers that technology to get you there.
Hmm.
And then, as I said before, the security features that we could get into a little bit more later, and then as well as consumer experience. So the consumer experience, there is not a direct feature functionality that a client will see if they walk up and use a Windows 10 operating system. It's really the added benefits and efficiencies that you will have as an overall ATM channel. So remote deploying software to your ATM, higher uptime because your core of your ATM is newer and it doesn't take a long time to get set up or reboot. Those are the type of incremental changes that you'll see from this upgrade that all clients will experience, and at the end of the day provide that tip-top differentiated experience against other FI's competitors.
Let's say I'm a financial institution now ready to make the upgrade to Windows 10. What do I do next?
Sure. So it's a multi-step process, and when you think about it, it can be daunting. There's a lot of cross-coordination of different vendors. You have your hardware vendor, you have your software vendor, and you would need to coordinate them to make sure that you're doing two things. You would have to assess what is on the ATM to understand, okay, I have a device that I bought 7 years ago, and maybe it's ending its end of life, and the hardware that's on that device can't even support Windows 10. So then you would make a business decision whether to replace the ATM altogether, or if you just replace some components inside the ATM and have a different experience where you replace the core, the memory to support Windows 10, and then have all the ancillary components, the devices, the card reader, the check reader, the cash reader maintain on the device. So those are two options there. And then the other part is to actually push the software needed to be the new operating system to the ATM, as well as the ATM software that sits on it to run the ATM applications as well. So think of it as I think everybody's probably gone through this once before in their life where they had to upgrade the PC. You click the button, you go from Windows 10, from Windows 7 to Windows 10. It's in fact the same process for ATMs, but you got to think about the other elements too, right? You have to make sure it's locked down to where nothing that should not be on the ATM is being loaded. You have to coordinate the delivery of the hardware that's required to make sure the hardware is there before you can actually run the software. So that's a daunting task. So now that we kind of did a 10,000-foot view of what needs to take place, right? It's a little complex. The first step is actually to initiate a conversation with your Fiserv team. And our goal is to help you plan your Windows 10 migration. So what we'll do is we actually have teams of dedicated ATM experts that will walk your FI through the entire migration process. We'll get a little bit deeper. We'll understand your strategy. So if there's certain things you're trying to accomplish above and beyond Windows 10, we'll say, okay, since we're under the hood, what else could we do? So some of those things could be doing a TLS upgrade, so the network lines going back and forth to your ATM, or they could be other software, hardware components you want to upgrade. So if your devices are older and you want to go to contactless strategies and use NFC to ATM, you don't have an NFC reader, since somebody's already out there upgrading some of the components or replacing your ATM altogether, you can add those services too.
Sure.
So as we understand your strategy, we'll build out that plan. And then the next step would be to actually roll up our sleeves and start to understand the inventory that you have. So the key thing that we'll have to get to understand is the types of devices, the software that's currently on there, the hardware that's currently on there, and to understand if they're Windows 10 compliant. We'll do that in conjunction with your OEM or your ATM software and hardware provider to make sure that we're in lockstep on what to order. And then from there, we essentially lay out a deployment plan. So what we'll do is, depending on your business needs, and it really depends on access to ATM, so whether they're in a 24-hour vestibule or whether they're inside of a branch, and then we'll also take into the client impact, right? So you may not want all your devices at a branch to go down at the same time, so we'll coordinate how you want to upgrade one device at a location, or do one at a time to where we're not impacting your ability to service clients. And then with that, we'll just lay out a time frame. And as you can imagine, if you have a ATM fleet that is in the hundreds, it's going to take a little while to actually get this done. Hence why we keep bringing up the fact that the support for Windows 10 is January 14th of 2020, which is almost a month away. Right? When you think about it, it's a lot to get done. But at the end of the day, as long as you have these schedules planned and you have coordinated activities up and running, we can get you across the finish line.
Okay, well, that's good to know, because it is just around the corner now. So I know that Windows 10 upgrade offers the type of security and compliance service that you provide as part of the Fiserv ATM Managed Services offering. What other areas does Fiserv ATM Managed Services focus on?
Right. Yep. And this is where for Fiserv, ATM Managed Services is a great talking point. It's a great service to provide clients, because we will take over this planning for your Windows 10 upgrade, and the client will just sit back, guide us through their specific strategy, and we'll take it from there. But
I hear a huge sigh of relief out there.
Exactly. So one of the main things, too, we just hit on is vendor management. When you think about all the components and all of the challenges that it takes to operate an ATM fleet, Fiserv will take all that off your hands. So essentially, when you think about it, ATMs are a comprehensive collection of technologies, including sophisticated hardware, software, and networking technology. Managing ATMs can take a lot of your staff's time to do all the tasks like replenishing cash, replacing receipt paper, making repairs, and managing security requirements and compliance updates. Rather than dealing with that I think I named at least 7 different vendors, right? We'll take care of that for you. So that's one of the major things that clients look for when they engage in a managed service relationship with Fiserv. We will be the voice for you with those particular clients. And the other benefit that you see with managed services is that you are not a financial institution standing by yourself. You are, we call it the Fiserv team. So Fiserv is speaking on your behalf, but we represent more than just you. So the leverage that needed for those cash vendors, those software vendors, and all those couriers speaks a little bit louder when you stand as a collective voice. So that's one aspect. The other one that we keep hitting on over and over again is the security and risk. So within our managed service platform, we actually offer 3 different elements to protect your ATMs. We have something called intrusion protection, which protects against malware and viruses and hacking, and it's a product that evolves. So when you think about it, as fraudsters get smarter, they think of different ways to penetrate the ATM. So does our product. So as we learn of new things, and as we work with the FBI and we work with our software providers such as NCR and Diebold, they help us enhance this product, and we create new policies to help protect your ATMs. The other aspect of our protective solution is access protection. So this essentially locks down your ATM to where the operating system is only accessed by those who really need it. So those would be your level 2 providers who need to understand on the BIOS level what's happening at an ATM to help triage. So by locking down the ATM, you're essentially protecting the data that's on it and also helping to avoid misuse. And then last but not least, we have hard drive encryption. So I think this is one of the biggest things that a lot of our PCI compliance partners have been telling the ATM industry to do, is to do a full hard drive encryption on your ATMs, and that is one of the components that we have here as well. In our hard drive solution, encryption solution is within that PCI security standard.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The last thing I'll hit on too would be the other piece that people look for managed services for is the innovation part. So it's a daunting task to operate an ATM. It's a daunting task to make sure they're up and running as they should be. So the last thing on people's minds is working through the innovative part. So a lot of the different things, a lot of the Fiserv differentiating factor is our strategic efforts that we're after. So there's a couple of them that we'll go through today. One of them is digital integration. We talked about the mobile channel and the online banking channel and how impact a client experience today, and especially are shaping the new banking experience. ATM doesn't want to get left behind there. So we're dabbling in the NFC technology. So Fiserv is working on ways to support card tapping and phone tapping at the ATM to access your accounts. We're also looking at it to in a different aspect to say, in what ways does it make sense for a customer to engage a digital channel before they come to an ATM, to time that integration to provide a value-added service? One of those use cases is it would be great if you knew before you went to an ATM if it provided value-added services like multi-denominations, or if you were able to get a high dollar amount withdrawal from that particular ATM. And if you had a experience where you can engage and understand that on a digital channel and then simply walk up to your ATM and perform that transaction, that's, in my mind, in Fiserv's mind, is a value-added transaction experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then a couple of other things too, right? There's interactive marketing. So one of the things in a self-service channel you don't want to lose is a chance to engage a client in a cross-sell opportunity. So at an ATM, you know who's at the ATM. We know their customer profile. It will behoove us if we provided a service to offer them a targeted market offering. So that is something we're on heavily within our core banking group to make sure that CRM data is passing back and forth, and it's an active part of our ATM channel.
Okay.
And then the last thing we'll hit on here would be our goal into develop a new way to configure branches in a self-service transaction environment. So there's certain things we're doing, like with biometric authentication, to say, okay, great, customers may be a little bit afraid to use biometric authentication, but I think that fear is kind of peeling back given the fact that everybody opens their phone today with their thumb or with their face. With the new iPhone, we're thinking about it from an associate perspective. It'd be great if you're more nimble in a branch, if you're able to authenticate as an associate with your palm. There's something called palm vein technology that allows you to authenticate there. So if you access your self-service device like an ATM in order to perform a transaction on behalf of a customer, we're exploring some of those use cases. As well as recycling, which is a new age thing for ATMs. The hardware is capable now. Fiserv is partnering with the OEMs to support that capability in the near-term future as well.
Of course, one of the prime things that every ATM deployer worries about is uptime. So how does Fiserv managed services help with that?
That's a great question. One of the universal challenges that all FIs deal with is uptime. It's a metric that is being measured as a FI, as all the service providers, and the goal is to make sure that ATM is up and running with cash and the ability to take deposits as much as possible, because that's when you get the most out of your ROI, and that's where you start to differentiate yourself as a FI from the competitors.
All right.
So one of the things that Fiserv hears over and over again, and is an important part of managed services, is to make sure we're designing a process and a solution that helps financial institutions with cash forecasting, cash ordering, and cash replenishments. And one other thing that we always tell others not to forget is the deposit removals. That's not even the right term. But we'll go with that one. So our currency management program, it essentially helps institutions track and analyze cash movement across the ATM network, and it helps them accurately forecast cash and replenishment requirements and effectively reduce costs and resource allocations. The things that people forget is you'll have a plan. You'll have a planned amount of cash that's supposed to be in an ATM, but then there's these variables that come up from time to time. So one of the things that we partner with our clients with is if they are a large FI and they are in a city where a large event is happening, like the Super Bowl, we make sure that our cash forecasting mechanisms are accounting for those events. So we're able to actually stuff as much cash in those ATMs as much as possible. And then also working with some of our service providers to make sure that they are there and primed and ready at the time of this event, before and after, to service those devices as well. So we think beyond the traditional schedules of what it takes to operate an ATM from a traditional 9 to 5 non-holiday week. We take in those extra variables and factors into account within this program to make sure we're providing you the next level of service that you couldn't get by yourself, or if you didn't have a service provider like Fiserv to help you through that process. So when you think about it, some of the key things that we focus on is to make sure that we reduce cash levels throughout the cash replenishment process. So one of the things that people don't understand too with cash forecasting is if you have cash sitting somewhere in the ATM, it's not being used, and there's interest that can't be gained from that cash sitting in the ATM. So on the flip side, you want to make sure you have enough cash in the ATM, but you don't want to have too much is one of the key things we help you focus on too. The other thing we want to make sure is happening is we also establish and work with you on the demands of maintaining the historical data for your FI. So if you are a credit union and you have a specific events to where cash is heavily being used, maybe it's because you have a small business event. We want to make sure that we capture that in our data, and we can use historical data to understand what it would mean for those small events and those smaller use cases to staff appropriately, not only for uptime of devices, but also cash. And then we can think about it from a reporting perspective. We want to be able to send you notifications and alerts if an issue were to happen, and then also report out at the end of the day of how your ATM network did overall from a cash perspective too. So those are all part of our currency management program that you have at Fiserv with ATM managed services.
Okay. So yeah, that could make a really big difference in uptime. I would think. Brendan, you have done a superb job today of explaining all the reasons that financial institutions must update ATMs to their Windows 10 operating system. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. And if there's one takeaway that I hope people understand is don't be afraid to have this conversation, and also to plan. The key thing is even if you're behind the curve and if you have not started to take a look at what it would take to upgrade your fleet to Windows 10, it is still not too late. With planning and preparation, your risk will be reduced, and the expenses that you'll see by not upgrading to Windows 10 will also be reduced. So the type of planning that will keep your costs down and make better use of your time and resources and provide better quality experience for both your clients and your staff is starting now. And our Fiserv team of experts can help with that. We'll help you implement a successful rollout plan. We'll help you work through any of the nuances, and our experts are waiting for your call to make sure this is a successful process for you. So in engaging with Fiserv and our partners now will provide a smooth experience and significantly reduce the impact caused by an upgrade to a new operating system. So beware of it. And if you want to learn more about the ATM Managed Service Program, you can definitely contact us. We'd be happy to discuss the program because we will find a way for you to upgrade to Windows 10, and we'd be happy to take over that process for you as a ATM Managed Service client.
Well, thanks for being with us, Brendan. I really appreciate you taking the time and giving us such a thorough overview of what it takes to get to Windows 10 and how Fiserv can actually help some FIs get to that point a little easier.
No, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And as you can tell, I'm passionate about it. Fiserv is definitely passionate about it, and we're open to have conversations with the clients, big and small, no matter where you are in your Windows 10 planning operation, or if you're looking for innovation partners too. We'd be happy to have conversations to help you take your fleet to the next level and make sure it's operating at its peak performance. So thank you again, Suzanne. I appreciate the opportunity.